we have Ms. Erin Wilcox from Pacific Legal Foundation. Ms. Wilcox is an attorney at Pacific Legal Foundation where she litigates to enforce the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection under the law. Wilcox was the lead attorney in the recent Coalition for TJ case, challenging race-based admissions changes at one of the nation's former top high schools, and is currently challenging a New York law that uses racial barriers to exclude Asian American students from STEM enrichment programs. Wilcox holds a BA in History and Political Science from Wake Forest University and a JD from Wake Forest University School of Law. Let's welcome Ms. Erin Wilcox.
Hi there, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here with you celebrating this one-year anniversary of the Students for Fair Admissions decision. Like a number of people have already said, I remember exactly where I was when that decision came out. I'd been upstairs in my home office all morning hitting refresh on the Supreme Court's website. I decided to take a quick break to run downstairs and get a fresh cup of coffee, and of course that's when my phone starts blowing up that the decision was posted, naturally. So I'm standing in my kitchen trying to squint at my phone, reading the decision on my phone because I was not willing to take the time to run back upstairs to get to my computer. And it was such a great decision, and I remember doing just like a little happy dance when I got to the part where the Chief Justice wrote, "What cannot be done directly cannot be done indirectly." And while Students for Fair Admissions dealt with racial discrimination that schools do directly, because colleges knew the race of the kids that they were considering, Pacific Legal Foundation is fighting racial discrimination that is done indirectly. It happens most frequently in admissions at competitive K-12 schools, and it's almost always aimed at Asian American and white kids. It's anti-merit, it's anti-hard work, and it's always unconstitutional. I'll talk a little bit about what proxy discrimination is and how Pacific Legal Foundation is fighting it, and then end with some ways that you can join this fight as well. And you can find much more information about our cases on proxy discrimination at PLF's website, which is pacificlegal.org. And I'll hopefully have timed this correctly to have left some time to take questions at the end. So what is proxy discrimination? K-12 schools are not legally allowed to consider a student's race when making admissions decisions. So proxy discrimination is what we call it when those schools use something else as a stand-in for race instead. They can be things like an applicant's zip code or what middle school they attended, anything that will help these schools get the same racial mix of students that they could get if they just considered a student's skin color outright. It happens at some of the best public high schools in the country, like Thomas Jefferson, like Boston Latin, like Stuyvesant, like Bronx Science. And it can happen district-wide, like in Montgomery County, Maryland, where access to magnet middle schools are being withheld to Asian American kids just because the school district thinks there's too many of them in their magnet middle school programs. Proxy discrimination is racial discrimination. It's using your skin color to decide who gets in and who stays out of a public school. It's doing indirectly what you're prohibited from doing directly. It violates students' rights to equal protection under the 14th Amendment. Now, PLF's guiding principle here is that every individual is unique. We each have our own skills and our own talents and our own interests. And the government, which includes our public schools that we pay for through our tax dollars, they have to treat us as individuals, not as faceless members of our racial groups or our ethnic groups. And when schools change their admissions policies to focus on diversity or making the school reflect the community, they don't care about kids as individuals. They care about them as pieces of demographic data that they can hold up to voters and the media and say, look how balanced we are, look how diverse we are. Most of the time, that kind of language is just a code for proxy discrimination. So what is PLF doing about it? Well, we're a law firm, so it probably will not surprise you to hear that we are suing people. For about a decade now, PLF has been filing federal lawsuits against K-12 schools and school districts that use proxy discrimination to pick and choose who gets in and who stays out based on race. We're challenging admissions policy changes in Boston, in New York City, and in Montgomery County, Maryland. And this past year, our Coalition for TJ case out of Fairfax County, Virginia, was petitioned to the US Supreme Court. Now, the court did not take that case, as most of you know. I am almost able to talk about that without making a terrible face, almost. But we did get a scathing dissent from Justices Alito and Thomas, and a ton of media attention about the denial of cert. And I gotta tell you, the Supreme Court rejects a lot of cert petitions. They only take about 1% of the cases that they get every year. And at PLF, they reject a lot of our cert petitions because it's an uphill battle. But I've never seen a cert denial get as much national attention as the Coalition for TJ's did. You know, all the major papers, all the major networks, they were covering this denial. And that tells me that this is an issue that this country cares about. Not just the people in this room, not just the people that we know, not just the Supreme Court nerds who follow this kind of thing. Like, real Americans care about this issue. They care about merit, they care about fairness. So I take a lot of comfort in that. The Coalition for TJ case showed us that, and it paved the way for what's next. So at PLF, we like to say that we're resilient. We're not giving up. We're not giving up this issue, not by a long shot. Now, the Boston Parent Coalition case, which challenges the admissions changes to Boston's exam schools, that is going to be up at the US Supreme Court next. We'll find out this fall whether the court is decided to take that case. Our cases in New York City and our case in Montgomery County, Maryland, those are coming up along behind. They're still in the circuit courts, but it is shaping up to be a pretty exciting year ahead of us. And PLF will keep bringing these cases. We will keep putting this issue in front of the US Supreme Court until it pays attention, because this is an issue that matters, and this is a wrong that we need to right. Now, in each of these cases, in Boston, in New York, in Montgomery County, and at TJ, the actual proxies used are a little bit different. How successful they are in keeping out Asian American kids also varies a little bit. But one thing is always the same. There is clear intent by school officials to make it harder for some kids to be admitted just because of their skin color. And the schools claim that there's nothing wrong with this because the admissions policies don't say anything about race, and because Asian kids are still overrepresented compared to other races. Yeah, well, these kids aren't statistics. Like, you young people in this room, you're not statistics. You are real people who have worked really hard for years to get the grades, to build your resumes, and to give you a shot at schools like Stuyvesant or Bronx Science or Boston Latin or TJ or Yale or Harvard or wherever it is you want to go. And my colleagues and I at PLF, we are not giving up until your equal protection right to do that is protected. So how can people in this room get involved in this fight? Well, a lot of you already are. This is like an old home reunion kind of for PLF clients. It's so wonderful to see so many of you. We are so incredibly grateful for your support. But I think of that slogan that I see on the DC Metro, or I used to see on the DC Metro. I don't know, I haven't ridden the Metro in a while. But it says, if you see something, say something, right? I have a, frankly, alarming number of Google alerts set for proxy discrimination issues to alert me when this is going on around the country. But my colleagues and I, we're never gonna see everything. You guys will. You're out in the communities, you have kids, you're getting the emails from the school districts that say things like, our class is, underrepresented by such and such a number of these kind of kids. If this happens in your area, let us know. If it happens to your sister-in-law and her kids' schools, let us know. There's a contact form at the PLF website. You can tweet us, you can call us, whatever, we'll see it. But also, talk to your fellow parents, talk to your fellow PTA members, talk to the people at band practice or sports practice or whatever. Maybe they don't know that changing an admissions policy to reflect the diversity of the community is really code for racial discrimination. Speak up at school board meetings. Write letters to the editor of your local paper. Call your legislators. Call your state superintendent of education. Your voice is more powerful than you think. Another way to be involved in this fight is through your organizations. PLF has been so fortunate to have the support of some incredible groups like AACE, Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, Asian American Legal Foundation, CFER, a bunch of other ones that I am not mentioning right now, but we love you guys too. You share your knowledge with us. You encourage us. You help us find clients. Sometimes you are the clients. And you file amicus briefs to support our cases. And those amicus briefs, those friend of the court briefs, are so important. They show the courts that there are real people who care about these issues. It's not just the lawyers talking about the law to them. These are real individuals with real kids in real communities that are affected by these problems. Those briefs educate the judges, they educate the law clerks on issues beyond what we can do in a brief with our brief page limits. And there's research out there that shows that amicus support increases a case's chance of being taken at the US Supreme Court. Now, it's obviously not a guarantee because the Coalition for TJ had some incredible amicus briefs filed for it, but it absolutely helps. So when your group files an amicus brief, you really make an impact. And finally, consider becoming a client. It's fun, but it's not always fun, but it's important. If there's a potential case in your area, consider standing up to fight it. Or consider joining together with other families. There's strength in numbers. Organizations can be clients too. Just ask most of the people in this room, they know that already. And let me tell you, it is incredible what a group of really ticked off parents can accomplish. You guys have power. PLF is in this fight for as long as it takes, and I know you all are too. I cannot wait for the day that we are here celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Supreme Court striking down proxy discrimination once and for all. Thank you. Questions?
I first want to have comments. I want to say thank you to Pacific Legal Foundation. They have been supporting Asian American community for at least 3 cases, right? 3 or 4, right? So I'm grateful to them. But I have one comment. I want to support the comments, right? Asian communities, many of us, immigrants from countries ruled by dictators, we're afraid to speak up. Our children are afraid of filing the lawsuits or filing the complaints. But I tell you, in America, you should not, be afraid of that. Here, Jeff Wang, his son, Michael Wang, becomes he filed a civil rights complaint in 2012, right? 2012-13. And my son, he withdrew. He filed a civil rights complaint in 2016. Both of them spoke up. And then they both found a great job, okay? There's no retribution, in American society. Suppose they are not a law, right? So don't be afraid of that. If you're part of the fight, do something benefit for your children, for your future, or for your next generation. That's something worth to do that. So I want everybody, if you heard any case, come to us, come to Pacific Legal Foundation. We're going to, fight, and we're going to win eventually. Thank you. Any other question?
Oh, I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Pacific Legal Foundation for their wonderful work. I am the founding president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, and they represent us with 2 cases. And these are cases that will help not just Asian Americans, not just Chinese Americans, but all Americans, because it is about the freedoms that we're talking about being treated equally. It's about the equal rights in front of law. And so I encourage you to do exactly what Erin is saying. And remember that you don't have to individually be a plaintiff. You can join the organizations, and there will be anonymity. So please, when you go back to your homes and you're thinking about the ways that you could get involved, and you're a little bit concerned about putting your own 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old their own name and their picture out there, but they can join an organization and be part of this because it's important for everybody in this room and beyond. Thank you so much, Pacific Legal Foundation.
Anybody else? Thank you guys. If you have any questions about what it's like to be a PLF client, there are a number of them in this room that you